You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Today's program is brought to you by Korin, a supplier of Japanese chef knives and restaurant supplies. For more information, visit korin.com. Hello, welcome to Japan Eats. I'm your host, Akiko Tema, a food writer and the director of the New York Japanese Culinary Academy, which promotes deep understanding of Japanese cuisine in America. We are broadcasting live from Brooklyn, New York. This show is all about Japanese food and food culture. We see sushi at every day in the supermarket, but what is beyond sushi? We hear dashi ramen izakaya, but what exactly are they? Japanese food is so mystery for many people, and I try to demystify in this program from my crew guests. And my guest today is Thomas Rebel, who is the creative director at Noma. Noma is a famed restaurant in Copenhagen with numerous accolades, including 3 Michelin stars and the world's 50 best restaurants #1 spot 4 times from 2010 to 2014. And since its opening in 2003, Noma's chef owner, René Redzepi, has been inspiring the world through his strong philosophy of cooking with Nordic traditions and his never-ending pursuit of creativity. And Noma's landscape has reached far beyond Nordic countries, and Redzepi and his team have been actively exploring various food cultures in the world, including Japan. And since Thomas joined Noma in 2009, he has been working closely with Chef Redzepi and served as the executive chef at Noma's restaurant project in Tokyo called INUA. So today we'll discuss the unique concept of Noma beyond the famous restaurant, what Thomas learned through his job at INUA, Noma's pop-up dinners in Kyoto this fall, what happens after Noma restaurant's closure at the end of 2024, and much, much more. But before we start, Japan Eats is available on the Heritage Radio Network website, as well as on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify as a podcast. So please go to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, whichever you listen to, and subscribe to Japan Eats. And please write a review. We truly appreciate your feedback. Now let's start a conversation with Thomas Rebel. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Good afternoon from Copenhagen. And thank you very much for having me. Very excited to talk about Japan, food, and beyond.
Right, you're such a global figure, literally. I'd be really looking forward to seeing you. We met a couple months ago in New York, and your passion and focus and creative mindset were really impressive. So let's dive in. So where are you from? And what did you eat when you grew up, to just get to know you?
So I was born in Germany, to be very precise, in former East Germany at the time, in 1983, in a small city called Magdeburg, which is 130 kilometers west of Berlin. Oh. And growing up, what I ate is, what I can remember at least, was very well cooked, home cooked food. I remember that both of my grandparents used to have a garden where they were growing everything from apples to pears, cherries, plums, carrots, peas, cucumbers, tomatoes, and anything in between. And I cannot as such remember particular dishes. But what I can remember is that I was walking around in the garden and picking fruits from the trees and vegetables from the ground or the vine and eating them. And to this day, actually, I can still recall where certain fruit trees and vegetables were grown in my grandmother's garden. A little funny story as such maybe is kind of alongside those memories. I have another food memory which I would recall as maybe one of my first food memories, which is my mom was allowed to go to West Germany for 1 week, where she was able to visit her uncle, what was explained to me afterwards. And she was coming back with a box of mandarins, which at the time I think I was 4 or 5 years old. Mandarins to that moment I've never tasted before. And I liked them so much that my parents had to hide them for me because I was going crazy. And they were hiding it at my grandmother's place. So during that time, I was visiting my grandmother once a day because I wanted to have a mandarin, and as a reward of visiting my grandmother every day, I got 1 mandarin per day. So that's a little bit kind of my first food memory. And besides that, really what I can recall eating growing up. Of course, there was also a lot of bread, because bread is part of the culture where I grew up, and then a lot of meat as well. And my father used to also love to go fishing, and we had a lot of home smoked fish as well.
So it sounds like you really got the roots for what you're doing now. It's like the whole direct connections with ingredients and the seasonality and also the bounty from nature. So, but how did you get into cooking?
Well, I always wanted to become a professional soccer player. So much so that I actually went to sports college because I was selected to be part of this college and to hopefully go into a professional career. However, in the age of 16, I didn't make the next spot, so I had to make a choice. And around 2000, where I grew up, the unemployment rate was extremely high, above 20%. So there was an extreme uncertainty, first of all, to get an apprenticeship. And even if you are to get an apprenticeship, if you were to get a job afterwards. Also, my father at that time was running 2 small bistros, tiny bistros, maybe indoor seating of, I would say, 20 to 25. And it was successful enough to support 2 families. And my parents said, look, why don't you try anything related to hospitality? Because then maybe once you're done with your apprenticeship, you can come and support your father, and maybe with that avoid unemployment, and also, potentially take over the business. In the end, very Japanese in a way, where businesses are being handed over generations. And also, for that matter, I knew the hospitality business, and I kind of really liked it as well, because that's essentially the environment I grew up in. Because my parents, in particular, my father, was like a hospitality person by heart. And to put it in context, for example, I essentially grew up in his bistro from the age of 7 years. First, I just went with him every Saturday and Sunday because he had Western TV, which was broadcasting cartoons, and that's why I went. But then down the line, as you grow up a little bit and become more of like a little boy who has wishes, I earned my pocket money in the bistro, so I can afford. I could buy a video game. For example, Nintendo was a very big deal at the time, and also soccer shoes. So by the age of 8, I was able to tap perfectly beer and serve my father's customers beer. And I know in our days, I don't even know if you're allowed to speak that out loud anymore. But that's really the environment I grew up in. So, and I loved it. I loved the community. I loved the vibe, and in a way also there's something very special and different about serving people on their weekends when they're off. So it was a very special community. Anyway.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Fast forward, then again, going back to my apprenticeship, when I was 17, which is a second year apprenticeship, I got a cookbook from a German chef called Eckhard Witzigmann, which essentially is the German equivalent of Murat-san from Kikonoy. He was the god and still is the godfather of cooking. And I read his book, and at the time I didn't understand his recipes. I was probably maybe still too inexperienced. But what I connected to tremendously was the way he was able to explore the world through the world of cooking and flavors and smells, and the way he was able to enter any culture, and any door was opened through the conversation of food and flavor. And I was extremely fascinated by that. And I was also extremely inspired by that, because I early on realized that I will never be able to be free financially because my family background is not wealthy. However, if I become a good enough chef, better than the people around me, the best people around me, then maybe I can be free through my profession, just like this cook, and wherever I would like to live, for that matter, if it is Mexico or Australia or Japan, I just need to be better than the people around me, and everyone needs a good guy to peel onions and potatoes, for that matter. So, and that was really my driving force for the first 10 years of my career, just to be better than everyone around me.
And then you literally went to the top of the whole culinary, better than everybody else, and went to Noma in 2009. So how did it happen?
So at the time I was working in a 3-star restaurant in Germany near Cologne, and a friend of mine started working at Noma as a pastry chef, and he said, and I just went up in January 2009 for a lunch at Noma, and to visit him and to eat at Noma. And when I ate at Noma for the first time, I was completely blown away. And to this day, I only ate 3 times at Noma, so it's a very rare occasion. But anyway, when I was eating at Noma for the first time, I was completely blown away, not only by the food, but also by the whole energy of the restaurant. Just like no tablecloth at the time, people in aprons, waiters in aprons serving you, chefs coming out to present the food, and everything around it. And I just thought it was so unique and so unusual to anything I've tried, because at the time I was trained quite, I wouldn't say classic, but quite traditional. So I worked in 2-3-star restaurants and in a 1-star restaurant in Germany before that. I thought I just want to be a part and I want to see what this place is about, how it is to work there. So I applied for a job, came up for a week of trial, and then around that time, Noma was voted number 3 at the world's 50 best. And that gave Noma a huge push in terms of popularity and request of tables, so much so that they were so busy that they opened up another position in the kitchen. And I was, in the end, just the lucky guy who was around and fortunate enough to be at the right time at the right place. And I got this position.
Right. So, well, sounds like you had that classic shock, like inspiration from the whole idea of Noma, which is far beyond just being a great restaurant serving great food. So, but it seems like Noma concept has broadened, expanded, and there's so many aspects of Noma. I really didn't know how much things transformed since being top restaurants of the world. So, what is Noma now, and what is your role at Noma within these different concepts surrounding?
Whoa. What is Noma now? I think Noma is, and I think it would be probably better to ask somebody else this question as well, but because I'm also so deep in it. But I think Noma is a research facility, a creative incubator for everything and anything related to, first of all, our region, everything what is edible. It is a place where we encourage people to be creative and not be afraid to fail by doing or trying to be creative, where failing is just another step closer to succeeding. It is a place very much so like in Japan, a kaiseki restaurant, where we focus on hyper micro seasonal ingredients and trying to celebrate it the best possible way and sharing all this creativity and seasonality and flavors and passion of everyone involved at Noma with our guest.
Right. Well, I happened to meet with you and your team in New York when you had a project. And I was really impressed that almost nobody leaves Noma, right? It's like almost like a religious organization, and people really are excited being as it's part of the whole concept of Noma. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's a learning space, living space, like live your life living space, and that was what I thought Noma was. And you can't even pinpoint the concept of Noma because it seems like it's changing all the time and expanding all the time, deepening all the time.
Exactly, that's what I would call it. Probably more. It's evolving, and changing is. I think changing makes completely sense, but I think it's just building upon. So with that said, when Noma started, of course, the biggest focus point was wild food, and what nature has to offer Noma, and then it became the preservation cuisine in terms of like how can we preserve those ingredients and flavors for the winter, because the winters are extremely tough in Copenhagen with very, very few ingredients available to us. So how can we take what is available to us in the summer and take it with us to the winter? And then another focus became the pop-ups as well. where we went for the first time to Tokyo, and obviously have been hugely inspired by the Japanese food culture and tradition to fermentation and knowledge to fermentation. And then build on that, we also launched the Noma Guide of Fermentation. And then that went into, after the pandemic, to Noma Projects. This is how we met. And it's almost like, just because maybe the world and we have been focusing on other things a little bit more, but the wild food is still here. And I feel like more than ever, because of what Noma has started 20 years ago, now there are so many specialists in our region focusing on mushrooms, focusing on forest, focusing on the sea or on the shoreline, that it is more exciting than it's ever been.
Right. So to me, at the beginning, Noma, like Michelin 3 stars and world best top #1. And it was very fine dining, unreachable, only for a handful of rich people can go. But that sounds like it's almost trying not to be that way. And I really try to share your excitement about what nature gives to all of us. And that's why I think you're interested in fermentation at your lab. And also, I think the shared gratitude towards nature is so much in common between Japanese cuisine and Nordic cuisine, and especially Noma is really demonstrating the potential of how scarcity can provide rich products, produce to your table. Yeah. So, what's your role at Noma?
So I have multiple roles at Noma. And so first of all, when we talk about Noma, even though it is the same entity, if you want to talk about Noma, for example, in terms of locations, there is something now also what we have founded now almost 2 years ago, which is called Noma Projects. And to give you a little bit more background around Noma Projects is, first of all, Noma Projects is something where we are sharing our flavors of Noma, flavors of our region, our innovation, creativity with the rest of the world through products. And one of the reasons why we started this enterprise is COVID. Like many other restaurants have experienced, and also like I have experienced very badly myself, because INUA, the restaurant I was running in the past, didn't make it through the pandemic. But I think the entire hospitality industry have realized how fragile our business actually is. And more so even a restaurant business like Noma, where people come from all over the world. So people need to take vacation, need to book a flight, need to book a hotel, be fortunate enough to get a table in the first case. And all of a sudden the pandemic hit and there's no guests coming. And with that means there's no revenue stream. And that means kind of almost that we can't turn on the lights the next day. So, and that is like, in the end, a very, very, very borderline stupid business model, everyone realized, because the pandemic has shown things can change fairly quickly. So, and Noma Projects is a result of the pandemic, or one of the reasons. And we thought, okay, imagine you would apply the very same business model of like having a singular location in the world, and people have to come to you to experience your product. Imagine you would apply that particular business model to the Rolling Stones. meaning that you are not able to buy any records of the Rolling Stones in any record store. You cannot listen to them on Spotify, and the Rolling Stones would only be able to perform to 80 guests every night in Copenhagen. The Rolling Stones would not be the Rolling Stones. The good thing about a product like songs from the Rolling Stones, for that matter, now is that first of all, you can almost experience their songs anywhere in our days around the world. If you have YouTube, Spotify, or if you have a record store around the corner and you have a record player. But also because they go on tour, so they're bringing their product to you. And in a weird way, we try to be inspired by that a little bit. How can we share our product, our creativity, our innovation, and our flavors with a much, much greater audience? And the answer is Noma Projects. So I spend a lot of time with Noma Projects at the moment, simply because I've been with Noma for so long that I've been across a lot of the very first moments of some of those flavors we are brewing away over there at the moment, and also because I'm still a very, very, very strong part of the research and development kitchen in the test kitchen at Noma, and kind of I am the link between those entities. So whatever we do in the test kitchen, of course, we always now consider how would that translate into a home kitchen, for that matter, to, make people's everyday life just a little bit tastier.
And you've been with Noma for 15 years, so it's really like you know pretty much all aspects of Noma in Copenhagen, and also you've been traveling, and also you spent 3 years in Tokyo. So we'll take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll dive into INUA, the restaurant Thomas run in Tokyo for 3 years as a part of Noma's global projects. So please stay with us. Today's program is brought to you by Korin, a supplier of Japanese chef knives and restaurant supplies. Korin is proud of their Japanese culture and traditions, but they want you to know that their products are not just for Japanese restaurants. Their knives and tableware bring out the best qualities of food from every culture and fit into every restaurant, from French to Pan Asian to American, and that is why they are located in New York City, where people from every country in the world come to eat. Korin's Tribeca showroom is home to the most extensive collection of Japanese chef knives in the world, including Japan. Stop by to view their exquisitely designed tableware and the Welsh natural sharpening stones. They have a whole range of knife services, from repair and rust removal to reshaping and realigning. Korin is dedicated to this ideal, bringing the highest quality Japanese design to your table, so you can experience the unparalleled quality of Japanese craftsmanship in your home or restaurant. For more information, visit korin.com. Welcome back. You're listening to Japan Eats on Heritage Radio Network. I'm your host, Aki Katayama, and my guest today is Thomas Rebel, who is a creative director at Noma, the world-famous restaurant and pioneering concepts that inspire the world. So, this is exciting that you spent 3 years in Tokyo. Again, the restaurant name is INUA, INUA, in Tokyo, which opened in June 2018 and closed in March 2021, unfortunately, due to COVID-19. So, and at INUA, you served as the executive chef. So, how did this project happen? I mean, before that, you were in Copenhagen, and suddenly you opened a restaurant in Tokyo with, of course, Rene Redzepi. So, how did it happen?
So we talked about the pop-ups which we did in Tokyo, or our first pop-up in Tokyo, and I was very, very, very lucky and fortunate to be part of the research and development team at the time, and also with that I was traveling all over Japan. and exactly what we talked about in the beginning, kind of that I got to know Japan through a very different lens than many other tourists. And after the pop-up, I left Japan, and when I left Japan and was sitting on the airplane, something was different to many other places I've left before. There was like no doubt in my mind, I have to come back here. To what extent, I was not aware. I said maybe I come back as a line cook in one of the restaurants whatsoever, but I just simply have to dive deeper into Japan and its culture and its landscape and ingredients and history and seasons and everything. And I just ended up kind of talking to Peter Kreiner, who is the CEO of Noma, and Renee as well. And I expressed my wish that I was very interested in Japan and going back. And so they said, okay, let's see what we can do.
I heard it was the partner, right? It's like a major Japanese publishing company.
Yes. So, and then I overheard a conversation in Danish, which I didn't understand at the time, with Peter and Renee, and I just asked Peter afterwards what was this conversation about, and Peter was saying, we may have an opportunity to do something in Japan, but it seems like we are quite busy at the moment, and maybe we don't have the bandwidth to do it. And I just had to let it sink a little bit. And 2 weeks later, I went to Peter Kreiner, our CEO, and I told him, listen, Peter, if this thing in Japan is still on the table and still an option, and you guys believe I can do it, I want to do this. And kind of that was the very birth conversation of INUA, and yeah, everything else, I guess, is history.
Sounds like it was a destiny almost. You are in the right place, right time to be inspired, and then there you go. It was a setup already available to you. So, and I heard the concept of INUA is basically, and there's the word Inuit. It's kind of like a native culture, right? So, what exactly was the theme of INUA?
So INUA, first of all, the name comes from the Inuit culture, which are the native people of Greenland, and INUA in their culture is a spirit which connects essentially us as humans with the rest of nature. And I just love the name. And so, and the concept in the end, and I'm saying this with the deepest respect to everything what has been happening in Japan for many decades and centuries, for that matter, was a modern interpretation of a kaiseki restaurant, essentially. Or for that matter, of course, it was also very much a concept of what Noma was doing, which in my opinion is also a modern concept of kaiseki restaurant, which is, the representation of time and place on a plate for your guest. So we were trying to do something very, very similar. Just, literally that our palette of colors and flavors was not the Nordics, it was Japan. And for that matter, we tried to explore Japan at its absolute fullest, from really the most northern tip of Wishiri Island all the way down to the most southern island of Okinawa, and everything in between. And we were extensively traveling for almost a year and a half to explore all regions and all seasons at as many places as possible.
Interesting, because I think people who ever visited Japan would know each region has very different food culture, and also seasonality is really important. Of course, you can buy anything at a supermarket, but you go to Kyoto kaiseki restaurants, like you mentioned a couple of times. It really is a celebration of this ingredients over the last couple of weeks, and the next couple of weeks it's coming, and it's kind of a gratitude for what you're given every year, and you are able to taste that to the fullest. So, yeah, I really think that I wish I was able to visit INUA when you were there. So, what did you learn from your life in Japan during that being executive chef at INUA?
Whoa, I learned so much. First of all, I think Japan and Japanese people, as in general, as guests, but also as people, have an extremely knowledge about seasonality and ingredients, about what you were just saying. I think it's like, it's very rare, or I've very rarely experienced similar guests where people know so much about the food and have so many questions where it's coming from and why, and that and with that knowledge comes also a general appreciation to food and to ingredients and to flavors. So that was I think a very, very, very big takeaway, and for us also, our biggest approach at INUA was really, we were trying to be, first of all, accepted by the Japanese, and then hopefully down the line also be respected by the Japanese, because we believed, and I still do, is if you go to Japan, the most important thing is that you are accepted and respected by the Japanese people. And if the Japanese do that, and if they like you, then everyone else will follow, because it is the biggest compliment you can receive.
Right. But I think the feeling is reciprocal, because you respect the local culture, and then you try to make the most out of what's existing, and then people will recognize. So I think you made it happen. So in spring 2023, Noma had a highly successful 10-week pop-up dinner at Ace Hotel Kyoto, and tickets were sold to have been sold out within 9 minutes of their release. So what was the Noma Kyoto project last spring in 2023?
It was, so Noma has been one of the signature things is that Renee and the team and Noma and we have really decided that the most important thing for creativity, development, team building, and always moving forward is to do different pop-ups around the world, because it is the greatest source of inspiration and creativity. And because we love Japan so much, and we learned so much during our pop-up in Tokyo in early winter in 2015, and also with INUA, that so much has been left has been left back in Japan. We just said we have to come back, and we have to come back in a different season. We have to explore something different, and we also have to do it preferably in Kyoto, because to Renee, Kyoto is very close to his heart. First of all, because that's where he, for the first time, encountered Japanese cooking when he did an internship at Kikonoi, but also because, in a way, Kyoto is the birthplace of tea ceremonies, and tea ceremonies, at least as far as I remember, have been elaborated and developed into what is now known also to kaiseki. And kaiseki is the birthplace also to what has essentially inspired Europe to tasting menus. And that is just one aspect. And then obviously also the deep tradition and deep rooted knowledge to vegetarian cooking, the temple cuisine. It's just, it's too intriguing and too exciting to not do it.
Right. And also, Kyoto is a very traditional place, but like you mentioned, Hikunoi is the Michelin three-star restaurant, and the chef owner, Yoshihiro Murata, he is such an amazing figure to try to communicate to the world that Japanese essence of Japanese cuisine is not just a tradition. It's approachable, it's respectful to nature, and it's something so much global about it. So, yeah, I think he's leading a lot of other chefs in Kyoto as well, along with other top chefs in Kyoto. So, yeah, I think it's a very good place. And also the producers are really well connected with those restaurants. So it's such a concentrated, pure Japanese kaiseki culture, and also nature, bounty of nature abound. And yeah, it's just a great place to be in Kyoto. So, Noma is going back this fall in September. So tell us about Noma fall 2024. Why fall this time, and what are you going to do during the pop-up?
What we are going to do, I'm not allowed to tell you too much about it. But I mean, what I can tell you, of course, and you know that, we will be opening around the second week of October, and we will be open until mid-December. And it is the season where game meats are in season. It is also a wonderful period for many different varieties of crab. And it is also the season for fish innards or fish offal. And that is just focusing right now on the animal kingdom. And then there's obviously the mushrooms, the nuts and seeds. And yeah, that is, I think, as much as I can right now reveal what
Right.
it will be. But we are extremely excited to go back to Kyoto, because many people probably don't even know that, but the original plan was actually to go to Kyoto in fall 2022. But at the time, it was still so difficult to travel to Japan, to enter Japan as a tourist, that we decided to postpone this pop-up to February 2023. So we have done so much work and so much research already for this particular season that it would have been a waste of a lot of resources not to bid on that research and go back and do a fall season in Kyoto.
Right, spring and fall. These are beautiful time of the year. And so I assume tickets are all sold out for this fall, October to
Yes.
December.
Yes.
Right?
Knock
I'm
on
sure
wood.
it is.
It is without a doubt. And trust me, we don't take this for granted. And it is the greatest gift and luxury any restaurant can hope for and wish for. And we are so grateful for to know that the restaurant is fully booked, because that in the end, makes running a business like this possible at all. Because otherwise, if it would be unpredicted, if guests are coming, how many, and so on, then we would never be able to do it. So we are very, very grateful.
Right. And I'm sure you learn as a whole team flying over to Japan, learn a lot. And then I think Japan really appreciate that, the interest and deepening understanding the culture of Japan, as traditional place and also new place. So yeah, and the Noma as a restaurant is closing its operation at the end of 2024, right? So, but you have many other projects going on for 2025 and onwards. So do you want to talk about what's going to happen in the new year, 2025 onwards?
I think there will be a lot to reveal and talk about and share with the rest of the world, but I leave that for Renee, because I think he should be the one to
Okay.
let everyone know. So for now, we are going to Kyoto, and we're doing this fall season, and everything else I will leave for Renee to reveal.
Okay. So maybe you can come back and talk about your takeaway from the fall 2024 Kyoto dinners pop-up when you come back, and then you
Definitely.
can probably spill the beans about what's going to happen. Right. All right. So, by the way, the future of the industry, automobile food overall, has been redefined right now due to the rapidly developing climate change. So, what do you think is the ideal food system, personally? Because there are a lot of things to think about. You have to adjust yourself, and especially really focusing on seasonality and local ingredients globally. So, what's your thought on the ideal food system?
I think, look, right now I'm sitting in Copenhagen, which is in the very center of Copenhagen live 500,000 people. In Greater Copenhagen, there's 1 million people. And it's very, if I would talk about an ideal scenario for food, then, Copenhagen is probably a beautiful place to dream this up. However, having that said, if I would be sitting in Tokyo, and I believe Greater Tokyo has 38 million people, then there's two very different scenarios. However, I think if we are to start very, very simple and very small, then it would be definitely about educating people that a cucumber doesn't need to be straight, and a carrot doesn't need to be straight, and a carrot, can also have a little bump, or a cucumber can be thick on one end and thin on another end, and everything in between. Because what I have experienced and learned a lot is that because of so many requirements and limitations for farmers in Japan and abroad as well of Japan, is that there's a huge amount of waste towards of ingredients and food, simply because they don't have the right measurements. And to start very simple, I think that would be a very, very good way to approach, food waste, and also maybe, for that matter, at some point down the line, food shortage. And then with the rise of fermentation, and also more and more people starting to celebrate fermentation, and also understanding the world of microorganisms and bacteria and fungi. I don't know. I'm dreaming of a little magic formula, if that is being created or found or generated by a human or by an artificial intelligence. I don't know, but could we create this magical mix of bacteria and yeast and fungi, which just sits in our little compost box, and rather than transforming our food waste into compost, maybe it would transform our food waste into a delicious and nutritious paste, which then could be used for human consumption.
Right. Maybe we need a time machine, and
Yeah.
along with AI, and we can go back
Yeah.
years and years ago, and then analyze what was so strong about and developing this whole earth without contaminating or overusing precious resources, and we can replant everything that was so strong to make this whole earth powerful and productive and fertile. So anyway, so well, keep me posted. Next time we can just discuss more about this, because
Definitely.
I think it's very important. So, what are your plans and dreams?
My plans and dreams. My dreams are to continue traveling the world and explore different foods and flavors and cooking techniques, and meet people, share stories, everything around the fire, and what people have explored and experienced themselves. I think that is, and sometimes I have to really knock myself on the head and hope that I don't wake up, because in the end, that was the reason why I have chosen this profession, because I wanted to travel the world through food, and I'm so fortunate and lucky that somehow I've achieved that and have done it until this point, and hopefully can still be doing it for many, many years to come. And I think, having that said, it pretty much goes in hand that plans and dreams are, for me, the same thing right now. I consider myself very fortunate.
Right, and you may not plan, but you keep inspiring others to run your travel and meet people, because I think food is becoming together globally, but also really pay attention to more localized versions. So that kind of exchange, you're really a big vehicle. So yeah, good luck, and keep me posted. So where can we find your updates online and on social media?
You can find any updates on noma.dk or nomaprojects.com, or also on our Instagram pages of Noma or Noma Projects. Me personally, I actually quite pretty quiet at the moment on my social media, just because I have to focus so much on Noma Projects and Noma's social media as well, that I think it's almost the same thing for me. But yeah, and then but I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's a Noma's website, noma.dk, and summarize everything. And I can even see the temperature in Copenhagen
Yes.
now, 20 degrees centigrade,
Yes.
and beautiful day. So yeah, it's a beautiful, well-made website. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today, Thomas, and have a great time in Kyoto this fall.
Yeah, hope to see you, Akigo.
Okay, I'll try. Well, tickets are sold out, so let me know if there's any cancellation.
Yes.
All right. So, listeners, if you have any questions or comments about the show or suggestions for short episode guests, please contact us at japaneats@heritageradionetwork.org or at kikatema.com. Japan Eats is a weekly program and is always available at heritageradionetwork.org as well as on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify as a podcast. Our engineer is Armin Spenjon, and thank you for listening. I will see you next week.
Japan Eats is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.